I'm Molly. My last name is McKing. We are in Tucson, Arizona at Black Rose Tattooers. Honestly, the first time I got tattooed, I just fell in love with it. I thought that it was magic. The thought that you can physically change the appearance of someone's skin permanently was just mind-blowing. And of course, I'd heard about tattoos and I'd seen people with them, but actually watching the process really seemed magical. I started an apprenticeship sometime in 2013, probably towards the end of the year, and then I started physically tattooing people in 2014. Specifically in tattoo terms, I do illustrated black work, generally. That doesn't mean that I don't also do color tattoos, but most of what I do is illustration-based black work tattoos, primarily floral. I would probably be broke if I wasn't doing plant tattoos. There are definitely different types of tattooers, and some people have the eye for realistic things and they can draw. You know, they can look at something and draw it immediately, you know, no matter what it is. There's people that are really good at drawing birds, you know what I mean, or eagles or anything. And botanical and flower designs have always made sense to me. You know, like I can look at something and be like, that would be a great tattoo. Let's do it. It was such a huge gateway when I started doing mostly floral tattoos that is responsible for 80% of the tattoos that I do. Most of the flash that I did previous to becoming more appointment only, you know, was plants. So when people started getting that and then picking up on that was what I really like to do, that's when I stopped being broke, basically. Stopped being a broke artist. They fit so well into tattooing because we're putting them on people's bodies. You know what I mean? Like they're organic things, you know, and the flowers are too. So it always has just, they've always gone hand in hand. Roses are probably like the oldest and most popular thing to be tattooed on anyone ever, you know? And I think there's a reason for that because they look great, you know? And they sort of constantly exist in tattoo culture and just every other culture, you know? I definitely have made a few designs that are mixed sort of like industrial and botanical, because a bunch of my neighbors have, you know, like chain link fences or whatever, but there's paddle cactus growing through them or, you know, things like that. And I really enjoy the contrast between the super industrial looking, you know, like a chain link fence and the cactus, that they just shouldn't be in the same thing, but they are, and it works. Nature has a way of making things almost like perfect. I tattooed an African tulip not that long ago, and those flowers are almost like 5 or 6 different things just jammed together, and they grow on these huge trees. It's insane that's just what happens, you know, like no one planted that there, it just did that. Really, I think most of the love of plants probably came from my mom, and or growing up in a place that's much more nurturing to nice plants that aren't trying to like poke you or, you know, be poisonous or whatever. So, but I do love the desert plants. They're really cool. Process is pretty easy. She's a super easy person to tattoo and sits very well, sits super still, and talking to her is always great. Yeah, it's just a little color tattoo. It only took probably an hour and 20 minutes. She also has in chronological order, she has a mesquite tree branch that I did, I think in 2016. And then she also has a sort of like laurel leaves tattooed on her chest that I did, as well as a monstera on the back of her arm. A lot of people get flowers tattooed on them. That's a very common thing to do. I think a large part of just the generation that is of age to get tattooed now is just very into nature, you know, nature and plants. I'm sure the influence of social media has a lot to do with it, but are definitely worse things to be influenced into doing besides collecting tattoos and plants.